But let's get into this bracket real quick. You know what I mean? Why not? So this is the bracket as stands. Can y'all see this? Is this big enough? Pop, pop, pop. Hey, I like that. And let's go one smaller. So this is the bracket as stands. And this is I'm just taking it 1 through 8. I'm not taking into consideration the play-in games. Actually, shout out to Pick a Side podcast. If you don't know who those guys are, they also have a podcast. It's a group of 4 guys. I cannot remember their names off the top of my head, unfortunately. But Pick a Side podcast, they don't just cover the NBA. They do a lot of NBA coverage, but they're also, like, if you're fans of football, I know they do a lot of football coverage as well. I'm not sure if they cover baseball or NHL, but I know they cover football as well. Really good podcast, especially if you like long form podcasts. Their episodes be like 2.5, almost 3 hours. But in one of their latest episodes, they did a breakdown sharing their predictions for the playoffs. So I just wanted to do it and give my prediction. So I'm just going to go down the list. Feel free to chime in your opinions if you think I'm crazy, if you agree with me. And hey, Uzma said Pick a Side is a W. Exactly. Pick a Side is a W. It's a fun podcast. Like I said, if you like basketball, I suggest checking out Pick a Side as well. All right. So first round, Heat Nets. I'll be honest with you. Before the mandate was lifted, I was going to say Heat. If it was going to be Kyrie in and out of the lineup, I was willing to come on here and very well ready to come on here and say Heat. But if Kyrie's going to be here for every game, I think that puts the Nets over the edge. So in this case, I'd have to pick the Nets. Now, if you ask me in how many games, I'd still think that'd be a long series. I still think that'd be a very, very good series, especially because the Nets still, with the addition of Ben Simmons, with the addition of Andre Drummond, they're still not the best in terms of interior presence and interior defense. I got the Nets in 7. But if the Heat win, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, and I also wouldn't call it an upset. We're going to go down to 2-7 spot, Bulls versus Raptors. Like I said, Raptors fans out there, y'all are playing great. I know a lot of y'all was mad at me that Pascal Siakam was not on my top 5 power forward list. I was happy to see Fred VanVleet make an all-star team. But if the Bulls are healthy, Bulls are winning all day. And in that case, I got the Bulls in like 5. I can see the Raptors surprising the Bulls, maybe the Bulls. And randomly, I can see that one win being in Chicago. I can see the Bulls not coming out right for some reason. For whatever reason, I can see them maybe sleeping on the Raptors for a game, and the Raptors, for some reason, still game 2. And then the Bulls win 3 in a row after that. But Bulls in 5 for me. Where are we at next? Okay, Sixers, Celtics. The Celtics kicked the... Sixers and Celtics have had a lot of playoff battles in recent history. And the Celtics usually win most of those playoff battles. I think they've actually won all of those playoff battles against the Sixers, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. But this year's different. Even with the somewhat question mark of James Harden, in the last, I want to say, month or so, he's back to averaging 25, 26 points. I want to say I saw 10 assists and like 6 boards on solid efficiencies. And yes, that's a down year for James Harden, but that down year for James Harden is still an all-star year for most players. And the way Joel Embiid is playing, I'm going Sixers. Honestly, I would probably say once again that might be like a Sixers in 6, especially just the way the Celtics have been rolling. I got to put some respect on their names a little bit. Cavaliers, Bucks. The Bucks are the 5 seed. That's wild to me. Okay, so in this world, the health with the Bucks is they're healthy. They just don't have, like I said, Brook Lopez. Obviously, I'm going Bucks. There's no one on the Cavs that can stop Giannis. Just simply no one on the Cavs that can stop Giannis. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks sweep the Cavs. And there's no disrespect to the Cavs. The Cavs have had a great season. The Cavs are a really, really good team. But sometimes in the playoffs, it really does come down to who's the best player on the floor. And by far, Giannis will be the best player on the floor. Like, by far. By far. It won't be close. I All right, so now we're looking at the second round. Sixers, Bulls, Nets, Bucks. Sixers, Bulls is actually very interesting. I think the Bulls, DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, I talk about them a lot. I think earlier this season I called them the best duo in the NBA right now. But I think the Sixers have defenders to throw at them. They got Danny Green. I don't love Danny Green, but he's a solid defender. His three-point shot could be a little iffy, even though you look at it. Anyway, I'm not even going to go there. They got Danny Green, solid defender. We all know how great of a defender Matisse Thybulle is. And then you have Joel Embiid securing the paint. Vucevic cannot hold Embiid. And although you have Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso guarding a player like James Harden, guarding, they'll probably throw like a DeMar on Tobias. It'd be a very, very good series. A very, very good series. And you can call the Sixers bias. And I wouldn't be surprised either way. But I think this could be a 7-game series, and I'd go with the Sixers. Once again, because I'm going with what team has the best talent. And I think the combination of James Harden and Joel Embiid is a better talent ceiling than DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. I love DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. And that's why I'm saying this is going to 7. This is not me trying to be an extra OD Sixers fan saying we're going to walk the playoffs. No. I think this is going to go to 7. And I think we can fumble the bag and the Bulls could beat us. But I have the Sixers winning. And Embiid will eat. That's the thing. Embiid will eat. Cam said. But as a Sixers fan, I just know when it comes to second round in the playoffs, we like to do dumb stuff. We like to do a lot of dumb things over the last couple years when it comes to second round playoff matchups. And situations where Embiid should eat. That's all I'm going to say about that. Nets, Bucks. Very interesting matchup here. They have someone to kind of guard Giannis and Ben Simmons. I still don't know. I'll be honest with you. It's hard for me to evaluate this Nets team with Ben Simmons. At least I've seen James Harden this season. I kind of know how he's been looking so far this season. But when it comes to Simmons, I mean, I still think he's a great player. Even as a Sixers fan, I've made videos saying I think he's still a great player, knowing full well he probably wasn't coming back to play with us. I still called him a great player and wished him luck. I legit wish him luck with the Nets. But that being said, we saw the Nets and Bucks matchup last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Nets were, if Kevin Durant was shoe size was a half size smaller, the Nets are going to the finals, right? Or the Nets, was that the semifinals? That feels so far in my brain. And we at least know they was about to beat them, right? But this year, I think the Bucks are really going to miss the addition of Brook Lopez. I think that's really going to hurt them this year, not having Brook Lopez. And if the playoff matchups were a little different, I think the Bucks would have an opportunity to go back to the finals. But for the Bucks, it depends on who they matched up with. And as of right now, if they match up with the Nets, I got to go with the Nets. I think this would be a 7-game series, to be completely honest with you, but I got to go with the Nets. Cam says if KD's playing in the playoffs last year, I think they're winning. I agree. Morgan says Bucks will win that series again. I just really want to see a Nets Sixers East Conference Finals because of James Harden Simmons. That would be unbelievable. That would be unbelievable, Morgan. And the Nets, I mean, the Bucks could win that series, but like I said, in this scenario, the Nets are healthy. So a lot of people one of the concerns in real life, if we're being real, is Kevin Durant's injury. How is he going to look when he comes back? Is there a possibility he gets injured again in the playoffs? Those are all the things we'll talk about in the coming weeks as we get closer to the real playoffs. But for this, the Nets are healthy, and I think a healthy Nets do beat the Bucks. I think it'll happen in 7, but I think they do beat the Bucks. And then you get a Nets Sixers series. I'll be honest. As I was making this bracket, I didn't really see it coming to this point. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. As a content creator, I didn't want the Sixers versus the Nets to be what happens. I made this list. I didn't think about it beforehand. All I did was copy and paste the current NBA standings, and I told myself I was going to talk about it live with you guys. I didn't put much thought into this beforehand because I wanted it to be my raw, real reaction. And I'm just realizing I ended up with the Sixers and the Nets. Because I felt like if I said the Bucks were going to beat the Nets, I felt like I was going to be hating because I really do feel like the Nets should beat the Bucks. And now I'm looking at the Nets and Sixers, right? So let's just break it down. I don't think there's anyone on the Brooklyn Nets who can guard Joel Embiid. And I don't think there's anyone on the Sixers who can guard Kevin Durant. Morgan says I actually can't call a winner in this one. And this is the issue I had before when saying it's hard to evaluate the Nets because of Ben Simmons. And I think in this series of all series, this would be the series where I think it would be almost the most interesting, especially Ben Simmons on offense. Because to give you why I'm thinking this, one knock that I think a lot of people have on the Philadelphia 76ers is Matisse Thybulle's lack of offense. There's a lot of times when Matisse Thybulle finishes games for us. There's a lot of times where he's in the starting lineup, but a lot of people argue that Danny Green should be in there for the offense. But Matisse Thybulle's elite defense makes him valuable on the floor for us. But we all know Ben Simmons' lack of floor spacing as well. In my mind, those two things almost cancel each other out. Ben Simmons' floor spacing and Matisse Thybulle's floor spacing. And both of them are all NBA caliber defenders. I think Ben Simmons is probably the better defender because he's a little more versatile, being able to guard bigger guys. But I mean, I think the same year Ben Simmons was first team all defense and Matisse was second team all defense. Like, they're both all NBA level defenders, all defensive team level guys when it comes to playing defense. So the value on the floor is there. And obviously we know about Ben Simmons' playmaking. Matisse isn't there yet. I'm not saying they're the same player. I'm just saying they're both great on defense, and that's why Matisse is on the floor a lot of the time for the 76ers. Shane says, I think the Nets will win in 7. Cam says, I don't think you can predict this type of series. And Morgan says, I actually can't call a winner in that one. I got to call a winner because I'm the one who came up with this bracket, and this is what I said I wanted to do to end out the show. I think it would be tough. I think it would take a lot. I think either way this series goes to 7, and I think that 7th game is very close. I think every game of this series would be close. You can call it Sixers bias, but I'd go with the 76ers in 7. Mainly because I think when it comes to, once again, like I said before, best player on the court, the Nets don't have anyone who can guard Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid is having a better season than Kevin Durant, and that's coming from someone who Kevin Durant is their favorite player. Joel Embiid is not my favorite player. I am a huge Sixers fan, but Joel Embiid is not my favorite player in the NBA. Kevin Durant has been my favorite player in the NBA since he was drafted. I think Kevin Durant will make it very hard. I don't think the Sixers really have someone who can stop him. Because even PJ Tucker, an amazing defender that PJ Tucker is, and Kevin dropped 50 on him. But I can see Joel also dropping 50. So it would be a very interesting series, a very, very fun series to watch. You got James Harden going back and forth, battling against Kyrie Irving. It would be such a fun series to watch. But I'm going Sixers in 7. Right. Wow. All right. So keep that in mind. We got the Sixers in 7 right here. Now let's go look at Western Conference. Whew, that was way more difficult than I expected it to be. All right, Suns. As you can see right here at the 8 spot, I copped out. I got Clippers/Lakers. If we're being real, technically the 8 seed right now is the Clippers. However, I really don't see a world where LeBron James doesn't at least make the 8 seed. I know he didn't make the playoffs, obviously, in his first year with the Lakers, but he was injured all year. This LeBron James is healthy. This LeBron James is still playing like LeBron James. I really don't see a world where the Lakers don't make the playoffs. That's why I'm saying Clippers/Lakers. This is just going to be a team from LA here. But I felt okay putting Clippers/Lakers because, being honest with you, whether it's the Clippers, whether it's the Lakers, I got Suns in 6. Just being honest with you. It don't matter who's there because I think the Suns are winning. Warriors/Timberwolves. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Anthony Edwards. D'Angelo Russell is actually playing some really good defense this season, which is low-key surprising me. Shout out to Patrick Beverley. I made a video talking about that. I think Patrick Beverley's addition to this team is what's causing them and encouraging them to play better defense because their personnel hasn't really changed that much. I think guys are just putting forth effort on the defensive end. And yeah, Warriors, obviously. In that situation, I'd probably go like Warriors in 5. No, I'm not even going to. I can't. No. I think the Warriors will sweep the Timberwolves. I would love to see the Timberwolves at least win one game. But like I said, we're talking healthy here. We're talking Draymond Green is back, looking good. Klay Thompson is looking good. Steph Curry is there. Warriors are sweeping that team. Also, keep in mind, I said health, so that means the Suns are healthy too. Because I feel like we all know who's going to end up in this last spot in the Western Conference Finals at the end of this bracket. Mavericks, Jazz, fully healthy. That means really fully healthy. AD healthy. Bron playing amazing. Malik Monk playing good. Russ contribution is great. See, that's the thing. You lose me there, Cam. Let me read let me read it for everybody. Cam says, if AD is healthy, Bron is playing amazing, and Monk and Russ contributions are great, the Lakers are winning, in my biased opinion. Now, I like that you said biased opinion. I appreciate that. I respect that. And as someone who was also a Russell Westbrook fan, I don't think you're getting great contributions from Russ, because Russ's contributions right now have nothing to do with his health. It's more has to do with his fit. And fit not as in shape, how in shape he is health fit. It's just his fit on that team. He doesn't. And I get what you're saying, but I still got the Suns beating the Lakers if they met up in the first round. Mavericks versus the Jazz. This is a Jazz team that's healthy, so Donovan Mitchell is back. Honestly, the way Luka's been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks won this game. Wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks won this series, but I'm going to go with the Jazz because I think the Jazz are the more poised team. I feel like that's one of my favorite words to say. I feel like I say it all the time, but they're just a more disciplined team. They have some better playoff experience. Out of Luka and Donovan, who do I think is the better player? I think it's an argument for either. And I think depending on which fan base you would talk to, I think they both would call the other crazy for saying the other player is better. But from a perspective of someone who's not really a fan of either of these teams, I don't think the talent gap either or is drastic with these teams. And if anything, I think the Jazz just have a better constructed team. I think the Mavericks are in 5th place right now because Luka's putting on an amazing show. But in a 7-game series, when the game slows down a little bit, I think Luka's still going to have his moments. He's still going to play really good basketball. But I think the Jazz are just a better team overall, and I'd have the Jazz winning this series. Looking at the Grizzlies and Nuggets here. Fully healthy, right? Now let's talk about this. Fully healthy. We already have the prospect of Michael Porter Jr. coming back, Jamal Murray coming back, right? From what I can tell, I'm not 100% certain on Michael Porter Jr.'s timeline, so I'm not going to include him in the fully healthy conversations. But come April, fully healthy, Jamal Murray should at least be back and at least be like 80% if we're being somewhat realistic here. And at 80%, as great as the Grizzlies have been playing, oh, and this hurts me to say, as great as John Morant's been playing, as great as Jaren Jackson's been playing, I'm really even been liking what I'm seeing from Steven Adams. Like I tell y'all, I'm an Oklahoma City guy. I love Steven Adams. So many people call him the best screener on the planet. The Grizzlies Nuggets series would be so much fun to watch, Shane. Exactly. But when you got an MVP candidate, Nikola Jokic, who one of my, I don't want to say knocks, but one of my, something I wanted to see more of from him, I guess you could say critique going into the season. We saw him score a lot last year when he won his MVP season, but I feel like I didn't see him be like, okay, I'm dropping 40 this game. I didn't feel like Jokic could do that on a consistent, regular basis. I just feel like I hadn't seen that from him. And part of that could have been he was playing with a great player, Jamal Murray, who also had the opportunity and the ability to say, I'm going for 40 this game. So Jokic got his 25, got his 30. But we've seen now Jokic can be like, all right, I'm going for 40. I'm going for 45. I'm going for 50. Jokic can do that. Jokic has done that this season. So in this series, I'm going with the Nuggets over the Grizzlies. That would be a really, really good series to watch, though. Going back to the Lakers thing real quick. Cam says, last year's series gave me hope because, yeah, the Suns were amazing. Ayton, Book, Mikal, all amazing, but still went 6 games without healthy AD and CP3. But, yeah, just bias. Understandable, bro. I feel it. I get you, man. The hope was there. I think it could be a really good series. I just think the Suns are just locked in. The Suns have a hunger that I don't know if the Lakers have, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that, because it just popped in my mind, it's a quote that Anthony Davis had I think it was either going into this season or I think it was going into this season. And some reporter asked him, or it was an interview, do you think you still have something to prove? And he said, no, I don't have anything to prove. Basically saying after winning that 2020 championship, he doesn't feel like he has something to prove. And that's not all the guys on the Lakers. I'm not putting that on everybody. But that, for some reason, that quote has always stuck in my mind especially earlier in the season when Anthony Davis wasn't playing well. He's playing a whole lot better now. We just talked about that. But earlier in the season when he wasn't playing that well, and for some reason that's just sticking with me. So I'm going with the Suns. But I do see your point. All right, let's look at this Suns Jazz. We know I'm going Suns, right? I love the Jazz. That Jazz Mavericks matchup's going to be really good, but the Jazz aren't beating the Suns. I don't think we got to talk about and explain that one for long. And then we got this Nuggets Warriors series. I think that would be really, really interesting. The Warriors have Wiseman. They have, oh gosh, what is their other center's name? I can see his face, but I cannot think of his name. Not Draymond. Oh, wow. Warriors. See, this is what happens. You know what I mean? Y'all pull up to the live show, and then I can't remember Kevin Looney's name. Like, the Warriors have big bodies, kind of, sort of, to throw at Nikola Jokic. Thank you, Morgan Looney. See, y'all knew who I was talking about. The Warriors have big bodies to throw at Jokic. I don't necessarily think they're going to slow Jokic down. Looney's not nobody crazy. Wiseman's still a young guy. I think Jokic's IQ can just straight out IQ those guys. You know what I mean? Skill wise and IQ wise. But we're saying a healthy Warriors team. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond. I'm going with the Warriors here. I think, though, to be real, if the Nuggets are also healthy, like I said, healthy Jamal Murray, and then maybe by this time we're looking at potentially a healthy Michael Porter Jr., even though he wasn't having a great season at the beginning of the season, but that's also because of his back injury. So I don't really know what you would get from him healthy in a series anyway, to be completely honest with you, because at the beginning of the season he was bad, but it's because he wasn't healthy. So in this case, the Warriors versus the Nuggets, I would go with the Warriors in either like 6, maybe 7. But I would go to Warriors here. I think the Warriors just have a lot of depth. I think they have more depth than the Nuggets. And when healthy, that adds even more to their depth because they're going to play guys like Klay, Draymond for even longer stretches. So the guys who have been playing well in their place all this time are now going to be coming off the bench, going to be plug and play guys. The Warriors are just, they're really deep. They got a lot of depth. So now we're looking at the Suns versus the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. Oh, wow. And this series would be, if we get a Suns Warriors Western Conference Finals and a Sixers Nets Western Conference Finals, that would be absolutely amazing TV to watch. And in this case, I think it would be a battle of the guards. First off, you got Devin Booker and Chris Paul going up against Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, obviously. There's not really a crazy big man interior presence from the Warriors in this situation. Like we said, they got Kevin Looney, they got Wiseman. But I think a big X factor in this situation could be DeAndre Ayton. I think I made a video about him a couple weeks ago right before All-Star break talking about at length how much I'm liking what I'm seeing from DeAndre Ayton and how this year's Suns look different from last year's Suns because when the mismatch is there, they try to exploit it. And the Warriors like to do a little switchy on some defense because they have that versatility that Draymond Green allows them to move some players around to make some switches. I think they're going to hunt out Steph, even Clay. Like, Clay's a really good defender. I really like him as a defender, but he's not doing much against a DeAndre Ayton, to be completely honest with you. Like, he's probably going to get some strips every now and then. He's got really fast hands. But when they bring in, like, Jordan Poole off the bench, something like that, they're going to seek out pick and rolls with Jordan Poole to try to get him in mismatches with Ayton, get that ball moving. I really think, now, just like I said with the Sixers-Nets series, it can go either way. But I really think this series would go to the Suns in 7. So now you're looking at a Suns here. Oh, no, let me do that. Oh, Suns here in the West, Sixers in the East. And if I have to call it Suns versus Sixers in the NBA Finals, honestly, I pick the Suns. I don't even have an excitement to say that as a Sixers fan, but I think, based on what I've known so far, based on it's still a question mark of the fit of James Harden and Joel Embiid, I think the fit will happen. I think it will look really good. But what I've seen from the Suns when they're clicking, when they're fully healthy, the Suns have just been playing very, 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 very well. The Suns win games against winning teams. They beat up on bad teams. They move the ball well. They play smart. Chris Paul is one of the smartest minds in the NBA. One of the smartest minds in basketball. And the only thing that stopped him throughout his whole career has been himself and injury. Because every time when he was knocking on the door to beat those Warriors teams a couple years ago when he was with the Houston Rockets, him and James Harden, you know what stopped him? Injury. Those times when he was with the Clippers and them Lob City Clippers were looking really, really good before the Warriors even became the dynasty super team they are today. Back in 2015, the year they won their first championship. Guess what stopped them? Himself, injury. I'd have to go with the Suns in 7. And I'd be really happy because Chris Paul is my favorite point guard of all time. But I'd be really sad because my Sixers didn't win. Morgan says Suns in 7, man. I think this is their year. I agree. And I said it. I've said it multiple times. I think the Suns would be the team to win it all this year. I said it multiple times. I've been saying it for months. CP finally getting his ring. Cam says NBA Finals finna be Lakers versus Heat again. Take notes. You know how mad I'd be if that happened?